Welcome to Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha, a podcast shared by David Roylance. This podcast is dedicated to guiding you to completely eliminate the discontent mind and the suffering it causes by attaining enlightenment. Learn and practice the teachings of Gotama Buddha that will guide you to fully attain a peaceful, calm, serene, and content mind with joy. To support this podcast, visit patreon.com/support Buddha or visit buddhadailywisdom.com, where you will discover a full range of courses, retreats, and online learning resources to assist you on the path to enlightenment. Now, here's our teacher to share more.
Okay, I'm going to get started this evening by welcoming all of you guys. Welcome to Tung. Welcome to everyone joining online as well. Today is our group learning program where each Sunday and Wednesday I come together with students, helping them to understand the path to enlightenment. We just restarted this group learning program last week, where what I do is I help students to be able to understand the path to enlightenment. And here at the beginning of this particular program, I'm doing a 3-part series helping students to be able to understand the Eightfold Path. This is a core central teaching of the Buddha that's going to help you to be able to train your mind to get to this enlightened mental state where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. So over the next 4 or 5 weeks or so, I'm going to be teaching some different classes, but then eventually I'm going to start with chapter 1 of this book, Developing a Life Practice, the Path That Leads to Enlightenment, and we're going to go chapter by chapter. But for right now, we're just going to be starting with getting some real details on the path to enlightenment. Today, I'm going to be teaching the wisdom section of the path to enlightenment, the Eightfold Path. This is where you learn about right view and right intention. We're going to be starting with meditation, where I'm going to be chanting on the way in. This is kind of helping to ease the mind into meditation. Then I'm going to be guiding you in the meditation. Then there'll be a period of time of quietness where we're all meditating, and then we'll come out of that with some more chanting, and that's where I'll start today's class. So feel free to take whatever position you're comfortable with. I'm going to get started with the chanting. You're welcome to join in, and then I'll come back in with the guidance afterwards. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakewa Bhutang Mahakewanang Apivateyami Sawakato Mahakewata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Sawaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakewa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang sammuno Sakato rokavitu Anutero purisa Dhamma sati satatawa manusrang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. สัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเขวาโอตังมหาเขวันหังอาภิวาเตมิสวากขาโตมหาเขวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาธัมมาสติสัตตาตวามนุสนังพุทโธภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, good morning to everyone. Nice to see everyone here. Welcome to everyone online as well who's joining. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to help you to understand the first section of the Eightfold Path. This first section of the Eightfold Path is referred to as the wisdom section because this builds a foundation for you to be able to understand how to implement all the other parts of the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is a core central teaching that's going to guide you to enlightenment. Enlightenment is where the mind is completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you won't experience any discontent feelings. You'll notice that your mind has eliminated the causes and conditions that are producing things like anger, sadness, frustration, and all these other discontent feelings. Guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, and others. You'll notice that your mind is focused. You'll have concentration, clarity, and deep memory because your mind will be performing optimally by that point. You'll notice that all your relationships are really blossoming, both personally and professionally. You have harmony in all your relationships, where in the unenlightened state, you have a certain amount of bitterness, harshness, and hostility in your mind, and that'll come out in your relationships, and it damages your relationships. And oftentimes people think that's coming from other people, but it's actually coming from your own mind. You can improve all of that. You can get to a point where you don't even experience a bad mood any longer. And it's this Eightfold Path that's going to help you to be able to accomplish that. I'm going to be walking students through this over the next 3 weekends. This weekend, next week, and the following weekend, each Sunday, I'm going to be going through each of the sections of this Eightfold Path, the wisdom section, the moral conduct section, and the mental discipline section. Now, the meditation that we just did, it's part of this mental discipline section. On Wednesday, I did a in-depth teaching on breathing mindfulness meditation. If you're part of this program and you would like to really understand how to get to enlightenment, meditation is an important part of your practice. You're going to need meditation. You can't meditate your way to enlightenment. There's much more that you need than just meditation. That's why there's the entire Eightfold Path. But if you're really interested in experiencing this mental state of enlightenment where the mind's peaceful and joyful, I recommend that if you haven't learned in that class yet, that you actually go see the recording. You'll find it on our YouTube channel, on our Facebook group. You'll find it on our podcast. There's options like that for you to be able to learn what it is that I taught about meditation, because you're going to need to be working on building up a meditation practice. By the time we get to 2 weekends from now, when I'm teaching the mental discipline section, I'm going to explain how meditation fits into this overall path. But today I'm going to be focused on this wisdom section, right view and right intention. One of the ways to think about this eightfold path is that if you had a speaker system and you had 8 individual dials and you were trying to get a better and better quality sound out of the speakers, you would kind of tweak these 8 dials and try to get a better and better quality sound out of the speakers. Well, your mind works exactly the same way. These are the 8 dials that you can tweak in order to be able to train your mind and get to the point where it's performing optimally. You get a better and better quality mind. Like I mentioned, you'll have focus and concentration, clarity, and deep memory and so forth. So you're going to need to know this inside and out. And students will oftentimes revisit this multiple times. People who are studying very deeply and really actively training their mind, they might actually study this 6, 8 different times as they're trying to really understand it and get their arms around it. So if this is your first time starting to understand the Eightfold Path, don't worry, you're not going to be able to understand all of it in one time. That's why I'm breaking it down into 3 different sections here. But then also, as we go forward in this program, what I'm teaching now is chapters 4 and 5. Even though we're going to start on chapters 1 when we get to that point, this is kind of helping you over the next 3 classes to really understand what is the path to enlightenment by diving in deeply here. So I'm going to help you to understand right view and right intention today. And then, as I mentioned, we have these other classes where I'm going to be going into each individual section. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be teaching you based on the original words of the Buddha. Whenever you're learning the teachings of the Buddha, you would like to study with his original words. Now, I know that sounds pretty obvious. You're probably thinking to yourself, well, of course, what else would you do if you're interested in studying the teachings of the Buddha? Why wouldn't you use the original words of the Buddha? In the world, the vast majority of the people don't actually study with the original words of the Buddha. There's about 500 million people who consider themselves to be Buddhist, but they don't actually study with his original words. This is why we see so many misunderstandings in the world. The Buddha taught to do this inner work, this inner growth, and this inner development of training the mind. But what you see in the world is a lot of rituals and ceremonies and prayers and people talking about, this afterlife and getting to heaven and all these other things, or going to some land called the Buddha land or something like this. That's not what the Buddha taught. You'll find countless misunderstandings in the world. I've been to over 200 temples in my life, and I've only ever been to 1 temple that shares the original words of the Buddha. So if you do the math on that, that's less than 1%. So more likely than not, if you've been exposed to the teachings of the Buddha, they weren't the actual teachings of the Buddha. And you need to be able to just come to terms with that and understand that so that you can then approach the original words of the Buddha and study them in depth so that you can investigate and examine his teachings. You can reflect on them to verify whether they're true or they're false. And then you can practice his teachings by integrating them into your day-to-day life. Nothing in the teachings of the Buddha is based in belief. You will never see anywhere in the words of the Buddha where he says, just believe me. Because with belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it. You need to be able to get to wisdom. So the teachings of the Buddha aren't about believing a bunch of things and hoping something good happens when you die. It's about learning, growing, and developing in this life and getting to a wonderful life now. And the only way that you'll be able to do that through his teachings is if you study with the original words of the Buddha. So I make these teachings available for you guys in our book series and all of our resources, our classes, courses, retreats. Everything's available to you at no cost where you can get access to the original words of the Buddha. And that's how I'm going to be teaching you. I'm going to be sharing the original words of the Buddha here on Right View. That's what this first slide is here. So here's what the Buddha taught about the Eightfold Path on Right View. He says, in what, monks, is right view? It is, monks, the wisdom of discontentedness, the wisdom of the cause of discontentedness, the wisdom of the elimination of discontentedness, the wisdom of the way of practice leading to the elimination of discontentedness. 1 second, let me switch over here for the people on Zoom. I haven't actually shared my screen yet. Let's see. There we go. Now the people on Zoom will be able to see what it is that I'm sharing. Okay, so all of you guys on Zoom, this is what I just read. This is the words of the Buddha on right view. What he's doing here is he's actually pointing to another teaching. The Eightfold Path is a core central teaching of the Buddha that everything else plugs into. And what he's doing here as part of right view, this first step of the Eightfold Path, is he's pointing to another teaching and he's saying that's right view over there, because he has a whole collection of teachings. There's countless teachings that the Buddha shared, and this Eightfold Path integrates all of it and it brings it all together. So he's not going to repeat this right view in detail in the Eightfold Path. He's just pointing to the place where he's talking about what is right view. What right view is a teaching called the Four Noble Truths. So what I've done here underneath of this line is I'm actually sharing the top section of the Four Noble Truths. And I'm helping you to be able to see that correlation here by placing it here, that you can see that when he's talking about the wisdom of discontentedness, the cause, the elimination, and the path leading to the elimination, that's right here. It's the top section of the Four Noble Truths. This teaching goes on farther than this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to help you to be able to understand what is the Four Noble Truths by diving into detail to teach that to you. But I'm first interested in you building confidence that yes, what the Buddha is talking about here in right view as part of the Eightfold Path is the Four Noble Truths. And you can see that connection and that correlation because you're not interested in believing anything. You need to be able to see the truth for yourself. So now what I'll do is I'll teach you the Four Noble Truths, because in four simple statements, you're going to understand the problem that the Buddha discovered in the mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. You can have a real breakthrough to understanding what's causing these feelings in your mind so that now you can actually fix it. You can eliminate them. You'll never be able to eliminate your anger and frustration if you don't know what's causing it. But again, you can't believe what it is that I'm going to teach you today. You can't believe what it is that I put in books. You can't believe what anybody else teaches. You need to be able to learn, investigate, and examine. You need to be able to reflect, to verify whether something is true or false. And then you need to practice it, integrating it into your day-to-day life. And I'm going to show you how to do that as we walk through the teaching today. In order to teach you the Four Noble Truths, I need to first teach you what's called the Three Universal Truths. These are like building blocks that help you to understand the Four Noble Truths. Without understanding the Three Universal Truths, you wouldn't be able to understand the Four Noble Truths. Now, we call them the Three Universal Truths and the Four Noble Truths because the Buddha knew that they were true. I know that they're true, and other people know that they're true. But in order for you to get the benefit, you need to know that they're true. And that's why you're not believing these. I'm going to help you to be able to understand how to independently verify these teachings, because the Buddha isn't explaining to you the way the world should be. That's not what he does. He's not giving you rules and commandments and things like that. He's explaining to you the way the world is. And by understanding the way the world is, you can navigate the world more peacefully. When you experience anger and frustration and all these other feelings, this is the mind struggling and having difficulties in the world because it doesn't understand the way that the world truly is. So by cultivating wisdom about the way the world is, it will actually help you to awaken or to cultivate wisdom. That's what that means. To awaken to enlightenment is to cultivate wisdom about the natural laws and the way that the world truly works. So he's explaining to you the way the world truly works. So in this first universal truth, he's talking about impermanence. He explains how impermanence is all around us, that the world is constantly changing. There's something called conditioned objects. Conditioned objects will arise, they will change, and then they will fade away. Everything in the material world around you is all impermanent. Anything that you can see, hear, smell, taste, anything that comes in contact with the body or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind, it's all impermanent. It's constantly changing. It arises, it changes, and it fades away. Then there's something called unconditioned objects. Unconditioned objects do not arise, they do not change, and they do not fade away. They are actually permanent. There's only two things that are actually permanent. Enlightenment is permanent. When you get to enlightenment, it's a permanent mental state. It will be physically impossible for you to ever experience anger, sadness, or frustration, or any of these other feelings ever again by the time you get to enlightenment. It's a permanent mental state because your mind is actually unconditioned. Also, the natural laws of existence that the Buddha taught during his lifetime, those natural laws don't change. Now, people's memories and the books and how people talk about the teachings, that has all changed, which is unfortunate, but the natural laws themselves haven't actually changed. That's why the Buddha's teachings are timeless, that whatever he taught 2,500 years ago, it's still applicable today because he taught about these natural laws, and these natural laws don't change. So everything else in the world, other than enlightenment and these natural laws, is constantly changing. Anything you can see, hear, smell, taste, anything that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind. Okay, so this is like maybe 2 or 3 minutes on the intellectual learning of the universal truth of impermanence. But you don't believe that. As an independent practitioner, someone who's cultivating wisdom, looking to be able to understand the world around you, don't believe that. You need to now move this into reflection, because if I just taught you something that is a universal truth, you should be able to independently verify this through your own direct experience. Because you've lived in the world long enough, you should be able to look around the world and figure out if what I just said is true or is it false. So what I suggest you do in this reflection is you take things that you're familiar with. Like, for example, start out with this physical body. You know this physical body very well. You ask yourself, is this body permanent, meaning that it never changes, or is this body impermanent, meaning that it's constantly changing? So what would you say? Is this body permanent or is it impermanent? He says impermanent. What about the rest of you guys? It's impermanent, right? Ever since the egg and the sperm came together, this body's been constantly changing. We get taller, we get shorter, we get bigger, we get smaller, right? We get pimples and wrinkles and moles, we get gray hair. When we first started out, we didn't have teeth when we came into this world. Then our teeth grew in. That's change, right? But then those teeth fell out. That's change. And then new teeth came in. That's change. Then we get cavities, right? That's change. So this body's been constantly changing ever since the egg and the sperm came together, right? What about your relationships? Would you say your relationships are permanent, meaning you've had exactly the same people in your life your entire life? Or would you say your relationships are impermanent, meaning that people are coming and going in and out of your life? They're impermanent, right? Your relationships are constantly changing. All right, what about your bank account? Is your bank account permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It's going up and down and up and down. Some people's goes up, 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 up. That's change, right? And some people's goes down, 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 right? That's change too, right? What about the weather? Is the weather permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It's constantly changing. It's sunny, it's raining. Some places it's snow or sleet or hail, tornadoes, hurricanes. This is constant change, right? So we could go on and on and on like this. And if that's what you need to do, I suggest you do it. Walk around the world. Look for something that's permanent. Look at the wood planks on the floor of the temple. Some of them are longer, some of them are shorter, some of them are one color, some of them are another color. You're walking down the street on the sidewalk and you see a crack in the sidewalk. That is impermanence. That's change. You look at a tree and you see green leaves in the tree and you see brown leaves on the ground. That is change. That is impermanence. Everything around you is constantly changing. And this is a very important building block to help you understand the Four Noble Truths when we get to it. So you're going to need to deeply soak this into the mind where you understand the world around you is constantly changing. Then the second universal truth, the Buddha is explaining the unenlightened mind and what the unenlightened mind experiences. Now, if you've studied the teachings of the Buddha in other places, you might have heard them refer to this as suffering. I don't use this word because it doesn't accurately reflect what the Buddha was teaching on this important topic. So I'm going to share with you what the Buddha was teaching on this, and then I'm going to circle back and explain to you why I don't use the word suffering. So in the original words of the Buddha, it's in the Pali language, the word dukkha is being used. This word dukkha translates to discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. What the Buddha is explaining here is how the mind is shaken up. It's unsteady, it's uncalm. And he describes 3 feelings that an unenlightened being is going to experience. He experiences the pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and then neither painful nor pleasant feelings. These are called conditioned feelings, that based on some condition, you're then going to experience a feeling. There's pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, or euphoria, and that's based on some condition. Then there's the painful feelings, sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. Very painful to experience those feelings. Then there's neither painful nor pleasant feelings. I put boredom and loneliness here, but some people say that's very painful for them. So you could put that in the painful category if you like. But shyness is a good example. It's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. The mind's kind of uncomfortable, it's dissatisfied. Or say you're on public transportation and somebody you don't know comes and sits really, really close to you and your body's touching their body. You might say, it's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. The mind is kind of uncomfortable and dissatisfied in this situation. So these are the three feelings that the unenlightened mind experiences, and these are conditional, based on some condition. So for example, if you wake up in the morning and you see it's sunny outside and you get really happy and excited about that, that's conditional happiness. That conditional happiness, it's going to arise, it's going to change, and it's going to fade away. This is why you haven't been able to get to permanent happiness in your life, because your mind is basing its feelings on some condition. And that condition is impermanent. It's not going to be sunny permanently. So if you base your happiness on the sun, then that means your happiness is not permanent. It's going to arise, it's going to change, and it's going to fade away. As soon as it's raining or some other weather event, you're not happy anymore. And then there's the painful feelings. Same thing. It's based on some condition. There's some condition that is met. So the mind in the unenlightened state, let's just say somebody wakes up in the morning and they see it's sunny outside. It's like, it's sunny outside. Yay, I'm going to go outside. I'm going to play. Oh, this is going to be so fun. I want to go hiking. There's this hiking trail I've been wanting to go on. I'm going to call my friends. This is going to be a really great time. This is going to be outstanding. And now you go take a shower. And you come out 30 minutes later and you see that it's raining. And now you're angry and you're frustrated and you're agitated. That's what the unenlightened mind experiences. An enlightened being doesn't experience that. When they wake up in the morning, they're already happy. They have unconditional happiness in the mind. There doesn't need to be any condition met in order to be happy. And now they see it's sunny outside. It's like, sweet. I'm going to go hiking today. Been interested in going on that trail. I'm going to call my friends. They've been interested to go with me. We're going to have a blast. This is going to be a great time. And now you go take a shower. And when you come out of the shower, it's raining. It's like, it's raining. Well, I guess I'm not going hiking. Maybe I'll stay home. I'll read a book. Maybe I'll go to the mall. Maybe I'll invite my friends over. We can cook some food and have a good time. The enlightened being, they can maintain their happiness because their happiness isn't conditional. They didn't base their happiness on the sun, so therefore when the sun is gone, they can still maintain their happiness. But in the unenlightened state, you can't do that. You can only be happy if certain conditions are met. If my mom and dad do this, if my brothers and sisters do this, if my boss does this, if I have this much money in my bank account, if the weather is this, if I have this kind of house and this kind of car, then I'll be happy, right? So your happiness is actually shrinking because it's conditional. This is why some people, they're old and grumpy, right? Not everybody's old and grumpy, but there's some people in the world that are very grumpy and irritable, because they have all these expectations that their mind is accumulated in their mind. They want all these things to be true before they can be happy. So you're really limiting your ability to be happy when you have conditional happiness. An enlightened being is beyond this. They don't experience conditional happiness. They experience unconditional happiness, that there doesn't need to be any condition met in order for the mind to experience happiness. The mind is inwardly peaceful, inwardly joyful. There doesn't need to be any condition met in order to experience that. So here the Buddha is explaining to you what the unenlightened mind experiences, which are conditioned feelings. Well, if you know that your mind is unenlightened, ask yourself, is this what you experience? This is how you independently verify it. Because if it's a universal truth and he's explaining what the unenlightened mind experiences, you should be able to independently verify this. So ask yourself, out of all the feelings you've ever experienced in your life, Does this explain it? Are they pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant? If so, then you've independently verified this and you can see, yes, this accurately represents what the unenlightened mind experiences. If you think there's a feeling that you experience that doesn't fit into one of these three categories, I'm going to be pausing here in a bit, and I'm going to open up to questions. And you guys can ask any questions you like, and I will help you. So some people refer to this as suffering. I don't explain this as suffering because the Buddha didn't teach it that way. He explained it as how the mind is shaken up. It's unsteady, it's unstable. Because here he's describing pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. The word suffering explains the painful feelings really well. When you're angry, when you're frustrated or agitated or annoyed, you probably say that you're suffering. Or if you have guilt or shame or fear or something like that, you might say you're suffering. But if your boss walked into your office and said, hey, you're doing an outstanding job, I'm going to give you $100,000 more per year in your paycheck, and you got really happy and excited about that, would you say you were suffering in that situation? Probably not, right? Or say that person on public transportation came and sat really, really close to you and your body's touching their body. Would you say you were suffering in that situation? You are suffering in that situation? Probably not. So if we use the word suffering, it explains the painful feelings really well, but it doesn't explain the pleasant feelings and the neither painful nor pleasant. So you're missing 66% of a teacher's teachings. How could you get to the ultimate goal of this teacher's teachings if you're missing 66% of his teachings? So I encourage you to use the word discontent, discontented, and discontentedness. Because what you need to be able to do is see that these conditioned pleasant feelings are just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones. Because if you allow your mind to get the conditioned pleasant feelings, the painful feelings are waiting for you right around the corner. So for example, if you got a brand new job and you were so excited about this new job, maybe it was the perfect company, the perfect title, the perfect salary, the perfect coworkers, the office is beautiful, it's really close to your house, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is the perfect job. And now you're so excited about that. And now you go to work every single day, so happy and so excited with that job. But 3 years later, the company goes out of business and they fire you. They lay you off. Now you're going to be angry. You're going to be sad and frustrated, because if you can only be happy when you have this job, then that means when you don't have the job, you're not going to be happy anymore. So if you allow your mind to get these conditional pleasant feelings, the painful ones are waiting for you right around the corner. It's only a matter of time. And oftentimes these are spread apart so far you don't recognize it. So an enlightened being is beyond this. They can be happy with this job, but they can also be happy with this job, in that job, in this job, in that job. They can be happy in any situation. An unenlightened being can only be happy, for example, if it's sunny outside, right? If it's sunny outside, they're happy, but if it's not sunny, there's no happiness, right? So by the time you get to enlightenment, you can be happy no matter what, whether it's sunny, whether it's raining, whether it's snowing, it doesn't matter. So an enlightened being is beyond the conditionality of these feelings. It's not just conditional happiness, that they're experiencing this unconditioned joy, this unconditioned happiness, where the mind is cheerful and bright and glad and uplifted, and there doesn't need to be any condition met in order to be able to experience that. So when the mind is happy and excited with these conditioned feelings, the mind is shaken up. It's unsteady, it's uncalm. And now you can't make wise decisions. I don't know if you've ever had this experience where you've been so excited or so happy that you like tripped and fell, or you like dropped something on the ground and broke it. I did this one time when I was a kid. I was about 11 years old. I had this little parakeet, this little bird in a cage, and I was taking it to my grandparents' house in order to be able to have them watch the bird while we were on vacation. And I came out of the house so excited with my little bird. I was like, look at my bird, everybody, look at my bird. I was showing it off, all conceited, right? And I tripped and fell, and the cage fell down, the cage opened up, and the bird flew away. And of course I was sad, right? Because my little bird had flown away. It was Fred. Fred flew away, right? So This is what happens when your mind's excited, when it's overactive. Your mind's not making wise decisions. It's bouncing around all over the place. So that's why the Buddha calls this discontentedness, that the mind's unstable, it's unsteady, it's shaken up. You're not going to be able to make wise decisions when you're experiencing conditional feelings. But when you can get to unconditioned mental states where there doesn't need to be any condition met and your mind is just always happy, always joyful, that's where your mind can be stable and steady. So that's what he's guiding you towards. So this is the second universal truth, and you can independently verify that. Then there's the third universal truth. The third universal truth is actually a solution to one of the problems that the Buddha discovered in the mind. So I'm going to explain to you guys what that problem is first, and then I'm going to come back and explain to you what the solution is. This is called the universal truth of non-self. It's helping you to get to the point where you can eliminate one of the pollutions that the Buddha discovered in the mind. There's these 10 individual pollutions in the mind. They're called fetters. What a fetter is during the lifetime of the Buddha, if you were someone that they were trying to keep confined to a certain area, like a criminal, they would keep you in this area with a shackle and a chain and a ball around your ankle. Where today we put those types of people in jail cells or prison cells. Where during the lifetime of the Buddha, they would attach a fetter around your ankle, this shackle and chain and this ball. So when the Buddha discovers these individual pollutions in the mind, he calls them fetters because it's keeping the mind trapped in this unenlightened state, continuing to experience this anger and sadness and frustration over and over and over and over again. But just like the prisoner, when you release the shackle off of their ankle, they are now free, they're liberated. The same thing is true about your mind. When you get these pollutions out of your mind will now be free, where it won't be bound up with anger and sadness and frustration any longer. So eventually you're going to need to understand these 10 individual pollutions. In fact, I'm going to be starting a retreat today at 3 p.m. where over the course of this retreat, the entire week, I'm going to be teaching each of these individual fetters. I'm going to be spending about an hour to an hour and a half on each of these fetters. But right now, I'm going to explain to you the very first fetter. It's called personal existence view, because the universal truth of non-self is the solution for this. What this pollution is, this personal existence view, this is where your mind in the unenlightened state, you will cling to your body or you will cling to the mind, holding on to this, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. So for example, you cling to a certain self-image or a certain self-identity, wanting others to perceive you a certain way. And you can only be happy if they're perceiving you the way you want them to perceive you. For example, if you've ever gone to a social situation and you spilt something on your clothing and you were embarrassed in that situation, that's your personal existence view. Wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way, and you can only be happy if you're being perceived that way. The mind is clinging to this body, clinging to this self-image, thinking that this is who you are as a person. And you can only be comfortable if people perceiving you the way you want to be perceived. So if you have clean clothes, then maybe you think that you're neat and you're organized and you're intelligent, right? And that's how you want people to perceive you. But if you have maybe spaghetti sauce or chocolate ice cream all over your clothes, maybe you think you're a slob and you're unintelligent and you're disorganized. And now when you're around people, you feel embarrassed that they're not perceiving you the way you want to be perceived. Or maybe you've been where you went into and looked at a mirror and you saw a pimple or a wrinkle or a mole, or you saw a gray hair coming in and you were shaken up by that. That's your personal existence view, clinging to this body, wanting others to perceive you a certain way. And you could only be comfortable if they were perceiving you the way you want to be perceived. Or maybe you stood in front of your closet and you thought about, who am I going to see today? And how do I want to look? What clothes do I want to wear? And maybe you put on a certain set of clothes and you looked in the mirror and you're like, no, I can't go outside wearing that. And you put on another set of clothes and you're like, no, I can't do that. You put on a third set and you're like, all right, now I feel comfortable to go outside. This is your personal existence view, wanting others to perceive you a certain way. And you can only feel comfortable if they're perceiving you that way. Or maybe you were like me when I was a kid. I used to get out gel and mousse and I would run it through my hair before going to school. I would try to get every little hair in exactly the right spot. And I couldn't go to school. I couldn't go outside until I got every little hair in exactly the right spot. And sometimes I would do this for so long, I would actually miss the school bus on my way to school, right? So this is personal existence view, clinging to this body, wanting others to perceive you in a certain way, and you can only feel comfortable if they're perceiving you in that way. There's another part of this. It's called the self-identity. What the mind will do is it'll cling to this identity, thinking of yourself in a certain way, based on your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation. You might cling to any number of these things as who you think you are as a person. And now, if people are perceiving you the way you want to be perceived, you'll be happy and excited about that. But if they're not, you'll be angry and frustrated. So for example, if you're in a restaurant and 2 tables over, people are talking about your nationality. Maybe they say all Americans are lovely and kind and warm or gentle, or maybe Chinese people or Germans or Canadians or people from Lithuania or all Mexicans, any of this I am, where now they're talking very fondly, very agreeable to you. And you're like, wow, they're talking about me. All Americans are lovely and kind and warm and gentle. And you're like, wow, you're so excited because you think they're talking about you. But then it's only a matter of time before 2 tables over, they start saying something degrading or disparaging about your nationality. And now you're upset, you're angry because those people you think are talking about you because your mind is holding on to this identity of who you think you are. Or maybe you were in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend or a husband or a wife. And when you guys got together, you thought, I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend, I am a husband, I am a wife. And now you're holding on to that identity of who you think you are as a person. And as long as you're in the relationship, there's a certain amount of comfort that you have. But now when you guys broke up, maybe you're uncomfortable because you don't identify with I am single. And now when you're single, you might have felt like the way to solve that uncomfortableness is to hurry up and get right back into another relationship. You might not have felt comfortable being single. And you thought the way to solve that is to hurry up and get right back into another relationship so you could assume that identity of who you thought you were, which is I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend, I am a husband, I am a wife. So this personal existence view gets in the way of having a wonderful life because you're going to keep experiencing discontentedness over and over and over again. You can experience this based on your identity of your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation. Let's just say you're like a police officer and you think, I am a police officer. And you feel really great when you go into that job, right? And now for 10, 15 years, you're doing that job. But then at some point, you can't do that job anymore because it's impermanent. You're not going to be able to do that job permanently. So now maybe you get injured, you get fired, maybe they lay you off, or maybe you just retire or something like that. And let's just say now you're driving a taxi, but you're disgruntled and frustrated because your mind is identifying with I am a police officer and you don't identify with I am a taxi driver. And now you're frustrated and agitated or annoyed because you're holding on to this identity of who you think you are as a person. This is what personal existence view is, where you're clinging to the self-image of the body or you're clinging to the self-identity in the mind, thinking that this is who you are. And what the Buddha teaches you is that there is no self. This body is not you. This mind is not you. But the problem with personal existence view is the pollution of the mind thinks that this is you, and you'll cling to it as who you think you are. And now, in certain situations, you'll be happy and excited. In other situations, you'll be angry and frustrated based on this personal existence view. So you need to get to the point where you realize non-self, that you realize that this body is not you, and that this mind is not you. It's not who you are as a person. But the challenge with this is all throughout your life, you've been accumulating this idea of who you think you are. And ever since we were born, we were given a label. I don't know what all of your labels are, but my label is David. Now, when we get that label, we start assigning this identity to it, right? Our personality, our character of who we think we are as a person. And now, even when we grow up in a certain land, there's maybe a flag, a national anthem, maybe there's a pledge or something like this. There's sports teams that you might follow. And you're like, yeah, I'm American or I'm Chinese or I'm Japanese. I'm going to cheer for that team. Yeah. right? Because that's who I am. So all throughout our life, we have this personal existence view that's getting accumulated in the mind. So sometimes when I talk about this, people understand it right away. Other times they have a lot of difficulty because you've been accumulating this all throughout your life. When I share with you that this body is not you and this mind is not you, people will say, well, if I'm not the body and I'm not the mind, then who am I? What am I? Right? This is the mind trying to grab onto something as who you think you are as a person. The mind's still grabbing. So sometimes people grab onto their decisions. Like, let's just say in the past, you maybe used drugs and alcohol. You might think, I am an alcoholic or I am an addict. That's not true. In the past, this person used to make decisions to use drugs and alcohol, but that doesn't define who they are today. Because if you allow your mind to adopt that identity of who you think you are, there might be guilt or shame that comes into the mind, right? Because now you're holding on to this identity of who you think you are. And you might think you're less of a person. Sometimes people have personal existence views so strongly, they come to a place like Thailand in order to find themselves. They might go to their parents in their home country and say, Mom, Dad, I need to go to Thailand. I don't even know who I am anymore. I need to go find myself, right? I need to go find my true self. So they will come to Thailand. They will spend time here, right? Maybe 6 months, a year. And then eventually they'll get to a point where they go back home and they're like, Mom and Dad, I feel so great. I found myself. I know who I am again. They haven't found themselves. What they might have found is new hobbies, new activities, new friends, maybe a new job or occupation or something like that. And they've grabbed on to all this stuff as who they think they are. And now they think that that's who they are. But when all that stuff changes, they're going to be right back into the same situation again, where they don't know who they are. Because if you try to grab on to anything and identify that as who you are, as soon as that changes, you'll feel like less of a person. You'll have difficulties and struggles. So the Buddha is teaching you that there is no self. So you can't find yourself here in Thailand because it doesn't exist. There is no self, right? But you need to be able to peer into this more closely to be able to see it. I'm just introducing it to you here today. But as you go deeper into the path to enlightenment, you're going to need to understand this more closely so you can get to the point where you realize non-self. You can realize that this body is not you and this mind is not you. So if somebody said to me something degrading or disparaging about Americans, since I was born in that place, I wouldn't be upset. I wouldn't be angry. They're not talking about me, right? If someone says all Americans are lovely and kind and warm and gentle, okay, that's their opinion, but they're not talking about me because I'm not American. Or if they say something degrading and disparaging about Americans, okay, they're not talking about me. My mind can stay calm and peaceful. Whereas if I thought that's who I am, I would be upset and angry. So there's more for you to learn here on this particular topic, but I'm going to show you how to independently verify that there is no self. Because remember, you're not interested in believing any of these teachings. So think about yourself when you were a child, when you were a teenager, early adulthood, and then now. Think about your personality, your character, how you thought about yourself. Has it been exactly the same through all those 4 phases of your life? Or has your thoughts and ideas of who you are as a person been constantly changing over that time? You should be able to see, right? Your thoughts and ideas of who you think you are as a person has been constantly changing. That's how you can see that there is no self. Here's another way. If your arm was cut off at the shoulder, if it was amputated, and you only have one hand and one arm, are you less of a person? These guys are shaking their head no. Are you less of a person? Yeah, most of you guys, everybody's saying no, right? So there you can see intellectually that you understand this body is not you. Because otherwise you would have answered that question differently. There's less body, so there's less you, but nobody hardly ever answers it that way. Almost everybody always says, yeah, I'm not less of a person just because I have less body. I have less use of a hand and arm, but I'm not less of a person, right? So you can see intellectually, you understand that this body is not you, right? Because otherwise you would have answered that question differently. But in the heat of the moment, when someone's like, wow, that shirt looks really nice on you. That color of that shirt really brings out the colors of your eyes. You might be like, wow, they're talking about me. And you get so excited about that. But then also in the heat of the moment, someone says, where did you get that haircut? Are you going outside looking like that? Right? And now you're upset or you're angry, you're frustrated, right? So this is what the personal existence view does to you. Here's another way that you can independently verify that there is no self. Point to yourself. Where are you? Lyndon's pointing here. That's a commonplace, right? Yeah, people point right here. Sometimes people point here, right? So if you're pointing here and you're saying, I am here, you need to see what you're pointing to. What you're pointing to is a shirt. Ask yourself, is that who you are? That shirt that you're wearing, is that you? Like if we took off our shirt and we held it up and pointed to it, is that you? That's not you, right? So we throw it away. Where are you? And then someone might point again. Well, what you're pointing to now is skin. So ask yourself, is that who you are? That skin that you've got? If we ripped off the skin and we held it up and we pointed to it, is that you? Is that who you are, that skin? That's not you. So let's throw that away, right? Where are you? Someone might point again. Well, what you're pointing to is bones. You're pointing to muscle tissue, organs, fluid. None of those bits and pieces and parts are you. But the mind is clinging to this stuff, thinking that this is who you are. None of this is you, but the mind keeps thinking that it is. That's what personal existence view is. And now you're going to form feelings based on this. So you need to get to the point where you realize that none of this is you. So this is just understanding what it is to a certain degree. Again, you're going to need to revisit this in the future. But there's certain teachings that I'm going to help students to understand when we get to chapter 16 of this book. We're going to go into more detail on this topic, and I'm going to explain the techniques of how to get to a point where you can realize non-self, where you can strip this away and no longer experience anger and frustration when somebody says something to you about this body or about this mind. So I'm going to pause here and see if you guys have any questions on these three universal truths before we go further into this, helping you to understand the Four Noble Truths. So if you guys have questions here at the temple, we have microphones there in the white bowl. We have some up here as well. And for those of you guys online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section. Or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand, unmute your microphone, and ask any and all questions that you like that way. So let me know if you guys have any questions. Yes, please help yourself. There's microphones right there. The people online won't be able to hear you if you don't use a microphone. You don't have to. I'm not requiring you to, but the people online would really appreciate it if you did. There's a gray button there. If you just press it and hold it up to your mouth, that would be great. Mm-hmm.
I just wonder that if our whole body not belong to ourselves, and what is the difference between death and live? If our body, if today I am live, and maybe after 50 years ago I will die, and what is the difference between that?
So it's not that I am going to die, because there's no I here. What's happening is this body can no longer support life. So this body is going to just lay there and deteriorate and decompose. So there is a body, there is a mind, and they've come together for this existence, right? And we refer to this as a person or as a human being. So there's obviously a human being sitting in front of me, and a human being just asked this being a question, right? But there's no I here. When you train your mind to understand this, there's no I here. But the challenge is that we use this all the time. You might say, I am hungry. No, that's not true. The body needs food. That's what is true reality. But the mind's lack of wisdom is stuck in this loop of continuing to say things that are untrue because it doesn't have the wisdom to understand true reality. And that's what the Buddha is helping you to be able to see is true reality. So somebody might say, I have a headache. No, there's no I here to have a headache. What's happening is the head hurts. That's what's happening, is the head hurts. There's no I here. But in the unenlightened state with this personal existence view, you'll cling to this I, right? So now when you hear somebody say something, they're talking about me, and now I'm ready to fight. right? Where when you understand that there is no I, this person is just saying things that could be potentially considered to be disrespectful or unwise. Now you don't have to get upset and angry about that if you train your mind to realize non-self. So this body is not you, this mind is not you, but there is a body and a mind here. And as long as this body can support life, there will be a being here that is alive. But when this body can no longer support life, then there's not going to be a being here. It's going to be a corpse at that point. It's not going to be a living being any longer. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're welcome. Vipav, you have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering if embarrassment is the same as shame, or it's a different feeling?
It's different.
Okay. So it'll be a painful feeling? Or could be a
shame?
No,
usually,
embarrassment.
Embarrassment and shame, usually I would classify that as a painful feeling. Yeah, it's usually painful. Embarrassment is a little bit less than shame. Shame is a lot more profound, a lot stronger than embarrassment, usually.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Thanks for the teaching, and I was just wondering, since like you mentioned, there's no me. So what is the object of enlightenment? What is the enlightenment happening to?
Yeah, what you're doing is you're training the mind. So there is a body, there is a mind, and they've come together for this existence, and we refer to that as a person. So the person is looking at the mind and saying, you need some training, buddy. You know, the mind's like, nah, I don't want any training. I want to be a wild animal. I'm going to run around and do all these other crazy stuff. And the person's like, dude, man, you got to get your act together. You're pretty stressed here. You're pretty angry. You're pretty frustrated. And this actually is really helpful because there are going to be times where the person is going to say, you know, that's really unwise and I'm not interested in doing that. And the mind's going to be like, no, we're going to do that. And the mind will long and yearn for that particular thing. So the mind is almost like a third entity, right? It's almost like a 3-year-old child that's throwing a temper tantrum. And the adult in the room, the person, needs to be able to train the mind. And now it's the mind that is experiencing enlightenment. So that's why, you know, for many reasons, it's unwise to say, I am enlightened, right? For many reasons, an enlightened being isn't going to go around and declare that they're enlightened. But if somebody says, I am enlightened, right away, you know that they're not because they're bragging, they're boastful, there's arrogance, an enlightened being doesn't have that. But you also know that they're not enlightened because there's no I here. There's no I to be enlightened. The mind is experiencing enlightenment. That's what's actually truly happening. So the person is training the mind, and now the mind's getting the training that it needs so it can function optimally in the way that I was describing enlightenment. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Yes, sir.
A lot of people sometimes feel that we're driven by our thoughts and feelings, and they kind of refer to it as following your heart or following your mind. And I guess things like feeling passionate or having passion for something comes from the heart, and then logic comes from the mind. How does that fit into all this?
So the heart is there pumping blood. That's what it's doing. We tend to refer to the heart for emotions and things like that, but that's really not true reality. That's one of the challenges in the unenlightened state is that we tend to speak in the unenlightened state in ways that's not true. And then the people around us speak in that way too. So it becomes very confusing for the mind to understand true reality. Any kind of feelings or emotions, it's all happening inside the mind. It's not happening inside the heart. The heart is literally just pumping blood. That's all it's doing. So when we talk about passion, what you're going to see is that's actually the next thing I'm going to talk about, which is craving, desire, attachment. Oftentimes people talk about passion in a positive way, but it actually isn't positive. So I'll help you to see that when we talk about the next thing. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. We have some questions coming in here on YouTube. The question is, how to stop anger and frustration if you have lived with physical and psychological abuse for most of your life, how karma works if there is no me. Okay, so the first question about eliminating anger and so forth, first, you're going to need to understand each of the classes that I'm teaching over the next 3 weekends, because it's not just a 3-minute thing to explain to you how to eliminate anger. You're going to need to understand the whole path. And that starts with what I'm going to teach next, which is the Four Noble Truths, because you need to understand what's actually causing the anger, right? So that's what I'll be teaching there. And what is experiencing karma? It's this living being that is experiencing karma, but there's no me here that is experiencing it. It's this being that is experiencing this. You have a question? Mm-hmm.
If the body gone and the mindness will be exist still?
Yes. The body and the mind are both impermanent, right? So whatever arises, it's going to change and it's going to fade away. So the mind arises, it changes and it fades away. Same as the body. It arises, changes and fades away. It's impermanent. It's constantly changing. So anything that's arising, changing, it's impermanent. It's going to fade away. So when the body and the mind are together for this existence, they're together for this existence. But at death, they separate. And now the body is going to deteriorate, and the mind is also going to do the same thing. It's ultimately impermanent. It's not a permanent mind. So now when we talk about the next life, it's actually a new body and a new mind every single time. Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't see any other questions anywhere. All right. Oh, we have one? Okay, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. If I read a book or I be a student in class, does I believe the teaching or the book, or maybe I practice the book teach me and the class teach me, and then I agree it to believe it?
This isn't the way you would get to enlightenment. You'll never get to enlightenment through belief, because with belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing something. What you need to do is use the books, use the classes to be able to intellectually understand what the teachings are. That's the learning and examination. Then you reflect the way I was showing you here to be able to independently verify what I'm teaching you is true or false. That's your reflection part, where it's like, yeah, that universal truth of impermanence, that sounds very true based on what it is that you've experienced in life. But now you need to practice. You need to be able to, in your day-to-day life, start to make decisions through these teachings. That's what's going to help you to be able to see the truth with 100% certainty. And you'll see that more clearly when we get to the Four Noble Truths here in a moment.
Yes, I practice in my life, and I will agree it is belong to me.
It's not about agreeing or disagreeing with the teachings of the Buddha, because if you have an individual who's enlightened, their wisdom is here, right? There's no hierarchy here, but let's just say, just for the sake of this understanding, is the wisdom of a Buddha, an enlightened being, is going to be here. The understanding that an unenlightened being is going to have about the world is here, right? So if you're going to get to enlightenment, you need to understand, how does this person think? How do they process the world around them? So when you start getting exposure to the teachings of the Buddha, you're going to disagree because your mind lacks wisdom and you don't understand what it is that this person understands. So it's not about agreeing or disagreeing. It's about learning, reflecting, and then practicing, because when you practice the teachings and you see how they work, that's when you'll have wisdom and you'll know the truth.
Yes. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. I think that's everybody. Okay. So now there's just one more little building block to be able to teach you guys, and then I can explain to you the Four Noble Truths, the problem, the cause of the problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. So this is a building block that's going to help you to understand the Four Noble Truths. You need to understand the definition between craving, desire, attachment, wants, and expectations. The mind, what it's doing here is longing and yearning. The mind is chasing after the objects of its affection, thinking that the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide lasting satisfaction. So the mind will chase it and chase it and chase it and chase it. If you've ever been in the mall and you saw a brand new pair of shoes and you were like, oh, brand new pair of shoes. Oh, I can't wait to get those on my feet. Oh my gosh, they're going to look so good, right? Or maybe it's a new video game or a piece of jewelry or an article of clothing. You just felt like if you could just get this thing, everything would be perfect in your life, right? It's not the object itself that is the craving, desire, attachment. It's the way the mind longs and yearns for it, thinking that it's going to provide lasting satisfaction. So the mind will chase it and chase it and chase it. It's like the mind thinks, if I could just get more money, that would fix everything in my life. I just need more money. Or the mind's like, if I could just get a new boyfriend, a new girlfriend, that'll fix everything. Let me get one of those, right? Or let me go to Thailand. That would make everything better. Let me just go to Thailand, right? So it's not the object itself. It's the way the mind longs and yearns for it. Do you guys know what I'm talking about here? Have you experienced this? Where your mind's pulling towards things? This is a craving, desire, attachment. Okay, so once you understand this, now we can explain the Four Noble Truths and help you to understand what your mind's experiencing and why you keep experiencing anger and sadness. Because once you understand what's causing it, then you can actually eliminate it. So the first Noble Truth is explaining the problem. The problem is that everyone that is unenlightened will experience discontentedness. So that's the problem you're experiencing. The mind's going up and down and up and down. You're happy and excited, but then you're frustrated and agitated. Then you're annoyed. Then you're experiencing embarrassment or guilt or fear or stress. There's some peacefulness here and there. There's some calm here and there, but it's only a matter of time before the unenlightened mind becomes discontent about something. There's going to be some discontent feeling. The mind's shaken up. It's unsteady. It's uncalm. It's going up and down and up and down. Okay, so this is the problem that each unenlightened being is experiencing. Because when your mind's shaken up like that, you can't make wise decisions. And then when you make unwise decisions, it produces unwholesome results in your day-to-day life. The second Noble Truth explains the cause of this. Discontentedness is caused by our own cravings, desires, attachments, because the mind wants everything to be permanent when everything in the world is impermanent. I'm going to say that a few times, and I'm going to give you some examples so you can understand it. This discontentedness, the pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant, is caused by your craving, desire, attachment, the mind longing, yearning, chasing after the objects of your affection. The mind craves permanence, but yet it lives in an impermanent world. So, for example, let's go back to that boyfriend or girlfriend. Let's just say you got together with a boyfriend or girlfriend. You might be so happy or excited about that. You got this new person showing you affection. They're calling you and checking in on you. They're inviting you to the movies, to dinner. Maybe you're going to the park. You're having these great conversations as you walk around the park. Maybe you're even having intimate contact where you're having sex and you're so happy, you're so excited. You're having all these pleasant feelings. But then it's only a matter of time before that relationship deteriorates. And now you guys break up. And now when you break up, you might be angry or frustrated. You might be lonely or bored, or you might be missing this person. This isn't your love that's causing that. That's the mind holding on and craving permanence, wanting this person to be in your life permanently. The unenlightened mind, when it gets its cravings fulfilled, you will be happy and excited. But when you don't get what you want, you will experience the anger and the sadness and frustration because your cravings aren't being fulfilled. The mind's holding on and craving permanence, thinking that this person was going to be permanent in your life, but they're not permanent. Even if you guys were together for the rest of your life, you guys were going to die at some point. Your relationship was going to be over. It was only a matter of time, right? But the mind's holding on and craving permanence. And as long as the mind's getting what it wants and what it expects, it experiences pleasant feelings. But if your mind's not getting what it wants or what it expects, it experiences painful feelings. Think about if you've had someone close to you that has died, maybe grandma or grandpa, mom or dad, brothers or sisters. Now, if you were grieving and sorrowful during that period of time, you're not a bad person. You haven't done anything wrong. It's just what the unenlightened mind does, is that it holds on and it craves permanence. And it can only be happy if it gets what it wants. If mom and dad, grandma and grandpa are alive, you're happy. You're getting what you want. But then when they die, this is impermanence. The mind doesn't like that. The mind's craving permanence. So the mind's not getting what it wants here. So it's sad and it's angry or frustrated or some other discontent feeling. You might have seen this when you go to a wedding. You might have seen brothers and sisters getting married and then they're crying, or mom or dad or grandma and grandpa are crying at the wedding. Well, this is wonderful, right? That they're going off into the world with someone else. They're starting a new relationship. It's not love that's causing that grief and that sorrow. It's the mind holding on and craving permanence. It's like, that's my brother. That's my sister. How dare you take them away from me, right? And now people are upset at a wedding. Or you might have saw this when you maybe got dropped off at school. If you can remember back to when you got dropped off at school, or if you've ever been around children and parents when they're getting dropped off at school for the first time, they're usually crying. Mom and dad are crying. The kids are crying, right? This is wonderful. Your kids going out into the world. They're getting an education. This is outstanding. But no, the parents can oftentimes cry when they're sending their kids to school because the mind's holding on and craving permanence. Because if it's love, love is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. That doesn't cause painful feelings. Right now, if you're falling in love and out of love with people, or if you think love hurts, you don't understand what love is yet. It's actually craving, desire, attachment that is causing that. The mind is holding on and craving permanence. And now when your child's going out into the world, the mind is holding on and craving that permanence, and the mind's not getting what it wants. I'll give you another example that doesn't involve relationships, and maybe you'll be able to see this more clearly. Think about if you bought a brand new car. This is like the perfect car. You've been dreaming about this car for years. You've been saving money, putting the money under your mattress. You got all this money and you're finally ready after 10 years to go buy your favorite car. You go down to the car dealership, you give them your money, they give you the shiny new keys, you start up your car, and now you head off the parking lot. And people are like, wow, look at her. She's so successful. Wow, look at him. And you're just so proud driving your car down the street, and you park it at a store and you go inside, and then you come out and there's a big scratch across your car. You might be crushed. You might be so angry and frustrated in this situation. It's not the scratch that's causing that. And it's not the person who scratched your car. What's causing the mind to be angry and frustrated is the craving for permanence. The mind is craving this car to be permanently beautiful, where it's not possible for this car to be permanently beautiful. Now, we're not talking about what's wise or unwise, because obviously when we walk through a parking lot, we aspire not to scratch anybody's car. But the fact is that this car is going to deteriorate. It's only a matter of time. It is impermanent. The paint's going to fade. The upholstery is going to get ripped and torn. The tires are going to need to be changed. If your mind is craving permanence and you're holding on, that means when you're getting what you want, you'll be happy and excited. That's why when you first get your car, you feel really great. You're really happy. But then over time, as it deteriorates, your mind doesn't like that. The mind gets angry and frustrated. That's why when you first get together in a relationship, you're really happy and excited because you don't have any expectations. The only thing that you're interested in is getting to know this person. But over time, you start seeing all this impermanence. You start seeing this person's doing things differently than you, which is normal. But the unenlightened mind doesn't like that. So one of the ways to say this is that the mind craves permanence. The other way to say it is that the mind does not like impermanence. It doesn't like change. For example, let's just say you're checking in at the airport and you're so excited to go on a trip and you think your plane's leaving in an hour and you've got your bags and you go to the ticket counter and you go to check in and they say, oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm sorry, sir. You can't check in right now. Your flight's not leaving for 3 more hours. If you started noticing you're getting angry there, that's the craving for permanence. I want every airplane to take off on time, especially the ones you're on, right? Everyone else's airplane can be late. You don't mind that. But my airplanes need to all take off on time, right? You don't live in that world. You live in an impermanent world because maintenance issues, crew issues, weather issues, if you travel enough, there's going to be delays. And now when you experience that delay, Your mind, if it's craving permanence, you will be frustrated and angry, where you just need to understand this is impermanence. This is normal. This is the way that the world actually works, is that sometimes your planes are going to take off on time and sometimes they're not. But what you'll do when you don't understand the second noble truth is you'll think that other people are causing you to be angry. That's what the unenlightened mind has. It has this lack of wisdom where it will firmly believe that other people are causing your anger. So what the mind will tend to do when it doesn't understand the second noble truth is it'll become unskillful, that it'll push people away. This is called aversion, where maybe you thought that this person was causing you to be angry or frustrated. So you've tried to push them out of your life. But you can see that that didn't work to solve your anger and frustration because you still get angry, you still get frustrated. If this person was the true cause of your anger, when you push them out of your life, you would be peaceful and joyful from that point forward. So you might have pushed away friends or family out of your life. Or the second thing you'll do when you don't understand the second noble truth is you'll be bitter and harsh and hostile to people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring at another being, trying to fear them into doing things your way. Or the third thing you'll do is you'll tend to put your expectations on people and try to pressure them or control them to do things your way. The mind essentially in the unenlightened state is trying to live in this bubble where everybody does things your way. And if they don't do things your way, you will push them out, or you'll be bitter, harsh, and hostile to them to try to fear them into doing it your way, or you'll put expectations on them, trying to pressure them to do things your way. And people might be doing this to you too, where they're pushing you away. They're being bitter, harsh, and hostile to you, or they're putting expectations on you and trying to pressure you to do things their way. So one way to say this is that the mind craves permanence. Another way to say this is that the unenlightened mind does not like impermanence. It doesn't like change. Whenever things are changing in your life, this is the time that it's the most challenging for you. If you look at your life and the things you've experienced in life, look at when things were changing. That was the most difficult times for you. When you were changing jobs, when you were changing living locations, when you were changing relationships. This is the time where you were struggling and having the most difficulties in life because your mind was holding on and craving permanence, but yet everything in the world around you is constantly changing. So when things were changing, that's where your mind struggled the most. So this is a bit of the intellectual learning on the second noble truth. But remember, don't believe me. Don't ever believe anything I say. Instead, learn, reflect, and practice. So I would like to invite you to reflect on this. Because what I'm sharing with you is that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. It's not the outside world. So take a moment and look at a recent time where you've been angry or sad or frustrated. It could have been this morning or yesterday or last week. Look at that situation with these fresh eyes. What was it that you wanted? What did you expect? What were you longing, yearning for? And if you would have gotten it, you would have been happy or excited. But because you didn't get what you wanted or what you expected, you experienced anger or frustration or sadness or some other discontent feeling. If you can see this, you can have a real breakthrough. That you can see that it's your own mind that's actually causing these feelings. But if you can't see it, let me know because I will help you. There's been plenty of students over the years that needed help with this. And I'll give you just one story of this so you can understand how this works. I had a student contact me one time and they said, David, I need to talk to you. I said, sure. Okay. What's going on? They said, well, I know that you teach that it's my own mind that causes these feelings, but I'm sure it's my wife. And I said, okay, well, what's going on? They said, well, I went to work the other day and my house looked beautiful. Everything was in a certain spot. And when I went to work, I was gone for about 8 or 10 hours and I came home and she had this craft project all over the house. The house was a wreck. And when I walked in, I got angry. I got frustrated. How did my mind cause that? I wasn't even there. She's the one who messed up the house. Didn't she cause me to be angry or frustrated? I said, no, it wasn't your wife. It was your own mind that caused this. Your mind was craving permanence. You were expecting the house to look exactly the same when you came home as when you went to work. And this isn't possible. That the world is impermanent. The only thing that's happened here is your experience changed. That your house looked a certain way when you went to work. And when you came home, it looked a different way. That's it. It's just change. And now your mind's craving permanence. Because when it goes from sun to rain, if somebody's angry or frustrated, all they experienced there was change. You can see there's no other person involved. When your bank account balance is here and then it goes down here, if you're angry and frustrated, the only thing that's happened is change. That's all that's happened. You can see that there's no other person involved. So your mind is craving permanence. And the beauty in this is that when you can see that it's your own mind causing these feelings, then you understand that you can actually solve it. That your mind needs training. It needs to be able to cultivate wisdom and be able to be trained to understand not to form feelings based on external circumstances. So this second noble truth is helping you to be able to see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, that it's holding on, that it's craving permanence, but yet you live in an impermanent world. So what the mind needs to do is it needs to learn how to let go and no longer crave permanence. That's where the third noble truth comes in. The third noble truth explains the elimination of discontentedness is possible by eliminating craving, desire, attachment. That if you can understand the cause of discontentedness is the craving, that it's the mind itself, longing, yearning, well, the way to eliminate the discontentedness is to eliminate craving, desire, attachment, where the mind's not chasing and chasing and chasing and chasing. And when you eliminate that, you'll eliminate your discontentedness. And you can independently verify this too. Because think back to the boyfriend or girlfriend. When you guys first broke up, you were angry, you were frustrated, you were lonely and bored, you were missing this person. But at some point, your mind let go. And that's where your peace and your joy came back. You were like, you know what? If he wants to be with someone else, so be it. And you let him go. Or you were like, you know what? If she wants to live in a different part of the world, so be it. You let go. And that's where your peace and your joy came in. Right? So the mind needs to learn how to let go because it doesn't know how to do that. And that's where the fourth noble truth comes in. The fourth noble truth explains the path to eliminating discontentedness is the eightfold path. This is the complete perfect plan that's going to train your mind how to let go so that you don't hold on and crave permanence. And now you get to a point where your mind's always peaceful. You're always joyful. But it starts with right view. This is the foundation. Right view is to understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. Wrong view would be to blame other people. This might be what you've been doing in the past. I'm sure you've been in knockdown, drag-out arguments where you've been adamantly trying to convince somebody that you have to stop doing what you're doing or else I'm going to continue to get angry. Now, this doesn't mean that they were doing something wise, right? Because they could have surely been doing something unwise. But your mind's craving for everyone to do it this way. And you can only be happy if people do it this way. So that's wrong view. That if you're blaming other people for the feelings that you're experiencing, then you don't have right view. You haven't penetrated in to be able to see with true reality that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. So the way you practice right view is now and forever. Whenever you're angry, whenever you're frustrated, start looking inward to be able to see what is the mind longing, yearning for. What is it craving? If you can start looking inward, you will uncover the cravings, desires, attachments, and then you can let go. So if you're checking in at the airport and you notice that there's this anger that's arising, rather than sitting in the lounge being angry and frustrated at the airline company, thinking that they're the ones who are causing you to be angry, that's not true. Look inward. What are you longing, yearning for? Oh, I'm on my way to Thailand. I want that mango and sticky rice. Oh my gosh, I just can't wait to get to that mango and sticky rice. Oh, those massages. That's what I'm longing, yearning for. Or I want to play with the elephants. That's what it is. My mind's longing, yearning for those elephants. And I just can't wait to get to those elephants, right? That's what the mind's longing, yearning for. So you need to be able to look inward and be able to see what is the mind longing, yearning for. And the mind's not getting what it wants here. That's how you're going to be able to solve this. So in order to practice right view, you need to start looking inward. That's what's going to help you to uncover what is going on in the mind. So I'm going to pause here and see if you guys have any questions on these Four Noble Truths. Let me know if you have any questions. because you need to be able to see the truth for yourself, that it's the mind itself that's causing these feelings. Looks like we have some questions on YouTube. So let's see what we've got here. The question is, our mind and body die, but our spirit continues. This isn't something that the Buddha taught. He didn't teach that there is a spirit, but he didn't teach that there isn't a spirit. So there isn't really anything that's continuing. It's a brand new body and a brand new mind every single time. We call it the cycle of rebirth because that's the way people have been translating it in the past. But a better way to think about this is the cycle of new existence, that there isn't really anything that's being reborn. It's a brand new body and a brand new mind every single time. What if someone is happy causing harm to others? Yeah, that's the craving that they have. They have the craving to see this person experience harm. And now when their mind's getting what they want, they get happy about that. But then if this person is happy and this person isn't experiencing harm, they are then angry because their mind's not getting what they want. So it's always craving, desire, attachment that's causing this. What about being angry that you didn't hold the right view? So if you get angry, that's because you have craving, desire, attachment that's in the mind. The way that you get to the point where the mind's completely peaceful is you now need to have right view, where you start looking inward. Instead of blaming other people for the feelings that you're having, you start looking inward, because then there's more training. This is just one step, but there's more training that's going to teach you how to train your mind to let that go, so that now you don't experience anger and frustration any longer. By the time you get to enlightenment, you won't experience anger and frustration. And it starts with right view, because if you didn't understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, then you'll continue to push people away. You're going to continue to be bitter, harsh, and hostile to people. You're going to continue to put expectations on people and trying to pressure them to do things your way. And you'll never actually be able to get to a point where you're inwardly peaceful and inwardly joyful. So it all starts with right view. That's why the Buddha teaches you this first, because it forms the wisdom section. Because once you understand that it's your own mind causing these feelings, well, then it makes sense why you need to train the mind. Because if it's everybody else who's causing you to experience anger and frustration, well, they should be here. You should be at home relaxing, right? Everybody else is the problem. You don't need to be here in order to learn and grow and develop and become a better person. Everyone else is the problem, right? That would be unwise to think that way, right? You can't train 8 billion people in the world to do things your way. So the Buddha starts you off with understanding what is the real source of this anger and frustration. What is the real source of this problem that you're experiencing? It's within your own mind. And once you understand that, it's like, now I understand why I need to get training. I need to train this mind. So that's why he starts you off with that. Okay, I don't see any questions anywhere else. Okay, so now I'm going to teach you right intention. This is very short, very brief. Right view takes a significant amount of time to teach it to you, because we really need to take our time and make sure you fully understand. And the mind lacks so much wisdom in the unenlightened state. It firmly believes that other people are causing you to be angry and frustrated. So we really need to take our time to make sure you can see this and penetrate into it. But with right intention, this is very straightforward. Here's the words of the Buddha. In what, monks, is right intention? The intention of renunciation, the intention of non-ill will, the intention of harmlessness. This, monks, is called right intention. So it's 3 things here. Renunciation. What that is to have the willingness and the interest to let go. That you need to let go of your false ideas, your false beliefs, your false opinions, your false views, and your unwholesomeness. There's a certain amount of unwholesome moral conduct that each unenlightened being is involved in. If you have the intention of renunciation, some people refer to this as right intention, right thinking, or right thought. You have the thought or the thinking that you need to let go, that you need to renunciate certain false ideas, beliefs, opinions, and views. Because right now, if you experience anger, sadness, and frustration, and all these other discontent feelings, there's certain false opinions, false views that you have in your mind. Because otherwise, you wouldn't have those feelings. You wouldn't have the anger and the frustration. Instead, the mind would be awake and you would experience peace and joy. So there's certain beliefs that your mind currently has that you need to be willing to let go of. The very first belief that you need to be willing to let go of in order to be able to get to enlightenment is the belief that other people are causing you to be angry or frustrated. If you continue to hold on to that, you'll never get to enlightenment because you'll keep pushing people away, being bitter, harsh, and hostile to them, or putting expectations on them. But if you practice the intention of renunciation, you'll be willing to let that go. So what you're doing here is you're not bringing in new beliefs in order to get rid of your old beliefs. You're actually bringing in wisdom. When you bring in wisdom and you see that it conflicts with things that you've believed your entire life, you need to be willing to renunciate that, right? So if you penetrate into the Four Noble Truths, you can see with wisdom that it's true. It's conflicted with everything you've ever thought your entire life about why you get angry, and you need to be able to renunciate that, meaning let that go. That's what renunciation is the willingness to let go and give up your unwholesomeness, like your unwholesome moral conduct, because there's certain bitterness and hostility that you need to be willing to let go of. And then your mind's false beliefs, your false opinions, false views, false perceptions of reality. Then you need to have the intention of non-ill will. In English, whenever you see a double negative, it's actually a positive. So non-ill will is the same as saying goodwill. So you need to have the intention or the thinking or the thought of goodwill, that you're going to have a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. You would like to develop that intention or the thinking or the thought of all beings being well in the world. That's what you're going to need to develop over time through training the mind. Then there's the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm. Because anytime you cause harm, harm is going to come back to you. Now, you just heard me share that you cause your own discontentedness. The same thing is true about everybody else. If your parents or your siblings or your life partner are blaming you for causing their anger, you didn't cause their anger. You can't cause somebody else to be angry. It's physically impossible, but you can cause them harm. Causing someone harm is to cause harm to their physical body, their material possessions, or their reputation. If you cause harm to someone's physical body, their material possessions, or their reputation, they're going to want to cause you harm back. That harm is going to come back to you. So you're going to need to get to a point where you practice harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to other beings. Because as long as you keep putting harm out, that harm is going to keep coming back to you. And how can you get to a peaceful and joyful mind and a peaceful and joyful life if you constantly have this harm that's coming back to you? So in order for you to get to peace and joy, you're going to need to stop causing harm, where you're not causing harm to people's physical body, their material possessions, or their reputation. And the Buddha is going to teach you how to do that in the next section of the Eightfold Path that I'm going to teach next week. So let me just give you guys a little review of what we've been talking about, and then I'll open up to any final questions that you guys have. So right view is the Four Noble Truths: accepting responsibility for your own feelings, your own emotions, understanding that it's your own mind that's producing these feelings, intentions, speech, and actions. That's all coming from your own mind. It's understanding that craving, desire, attachment is the cause of your discontent feelings, that it's not the outside world. So having right view is to understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. And that's going to help you to then be able to practice all the rest of the path to enlightenment. If you didn't understand right view, why would you ever make any changes or improvements in your life? Because this path to enlightenment is about doing this inner work, this inner growth, and this inner development. So you need to start with right view of where's the real source of the problem here. Well, it's inside the mind. And now you'll focus on training your mind. Then there's right intention. You're going to need the intention of renunciation, where you have an open mind, understanding that you don't know everything there is to know about the world. If you experience anger and sadness and frustration and all these other feelings, there's certain wisdom that your mind is lacking. So you're going to need to be able to renunciate or let go of these false ideas, false beliefs, false opinions, and false views. The first one you need to let go of is the idea that other people are causing you to be angry or frustrated. You're going to need to renunciate that, right? You're also going to need to eliminate certain unwholesomeness. You're going to need to be willing to renunciate that harsh and bitter and hostile speech that you have towards your parents or your siblings or your life partner or your children or other people like that. Then you're going to need to practice the intention of non-ill will, which is goodwill or loving kindness. And then you're going to need to have the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm. So this is what you're learning to get started, which forms the wisdom section of the Eightfold Path. But understand that you can't learn something like this and just snap your fingers and instantly go out there in the world and actually implement this perfectly. That's not the way any of this works. The way that this works is through gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. So don't be surprised when you get frustrated or angry today or tomorrow or next week. It's going to happen, right? Between now and enlightenment, you're going to experience some anger and frustration. So it's gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress that you're gradually learning these teachings and you're gradually implementing them into your life. So don't put the expectation on yourself that if you've learned today that your mind is actually causing its own discontentedness. Don't put the expectation on yourself that you're going to instantly go out into the world and now you're going to be peaceful for the rest of your life. That's not the way any of this works. So gradually, slowly but surely, you start implementing this into your life more and more closely, and that's what's training your mind. So instead of sitting in the airport being angry and frustrated that your flight's not taking off on time, start looking inward. Instead of being angry and frustrated because of something your parents or your brothers or sisters are doing, start looking inward, right? Start being able to gradually train the mind. Yes, you need meditation, and that's an important part of your practice, but you're going to need all these other pieces too. And that's what the Buddha is going to teach you through this entire Eightfold Path. So do you guys have any questions here or online about anything I've been teaching today? Yes, sir.
So it was on the right view. I think it was the third one. And I just wanted to ask for myself personally, I'll have to return home after this and return to a job and family and things such as clothing or attachments, for example. Could you implement enlightenment but still live like a modern life? If that makes sense? Yeah.
Yes. It's not the clothes themselves that are the attachment. It's the way the mind's longing, yearning for it. So let me explain this with an example. Let's just say somebody was on their way to a hike and they were going on a hiking trail and they had a liter of water in their car. And they left it in their car by accident and they're 30 minutes down the trail. And they're like, oh my gosh, my water. Oh, where's my water? And now they're so upset and they're frustrated and run back to their car. And now they sling open the door and they're like, water, right? And now there's a second person who they're out on the trail and they're like, I forgot my water. I should probably go back and get that. Let me go get my water. I'm going to be out here for like 6 or 8 hours. And now they calmly make their way back to their car and they get their water. Right? So the object's exactly the same here. The difference is that the first person had a craving, desire, attachment, that their water is going to be permanent. And they can only be happy if they have their water with them. When they don't have their water, their mind's all shaken up. The second person, they didn't have that attachment. They were like, I don't have my water. Okay, let me go get my water. So it's not that the clothing or the job or the house or the car, that's not the attachment. The attachment and the craving is how the mind's longing, yearning for it. So that's what you need to be able to eliminate. You don't need to eliminate your clothes or your relationships or your car or your job. You just need to eliminate the way the mind's craving for these things to be permanent. So that's why you can live a normal life in a household environment and still get to enlightenment.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I don't see any other questions anywhere. So what I'm going to do then is just end by thanking all of you guys for joining. Thank you for your interest to learn and understand the teachings of the Buddha. Next week, I'm going to be teaching the next section, which is the moral conduct section. And this is where you learn about how the moral conduct that you've been engaged in has been unwise. Because once you understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, why would you ever be interested in being bitter and harsh and hostile to someone? That's just causing you harm. When you put out that bitterness and hostility, it's all coming back to you. So that's what I'm going to teach next week. The Buddha's going to give you this guidance on seeing the cause and effect relationship with how you treat people and then how people treat you back. So when you improve your moral conduct, you'll see your relationships really improve. Today, I'm going to be starting a retreat at 3 o'clock from 3 to 5. I'm going to start this retreat. And then all next week, we have a retreat that's going on here. You guys are welcome to come to this if you like. You'll find details over there on our bulletin board. Tonight at 6:30, I'm going to be teaching meditation here where we just have a session on meditation and that's it. It's just meditation on Sunday night at 6:30. And then I just open up to whatever questions you have. And then I'm going to be teaching the same topic tonight at 9 p.m. because right now there's people in Europe, for example, that are sleeping. So if they would like to attend a live class, then I teach at nighttime too. I teach the same exact class twice a day so that way, no matter where you are in the world, you can be learning the teaching. So you can attend these classes live or you can watch the recordings. It's really up to you. So if you like to get plugged into these teachings and be able to learn the path to enlightenment, I suggest you start with this first book. This is the best place to start. You can get this online. You can download it for free. You can take it and go print it yourself if you like. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can order it on Amazon. Eventually, I'm going to be going chapter by chapter. In about 4 or 5 weeks from now, I'm going to go one by one to each individual chapter. Where here I'm kind of giving a really in-depth overview of what the teachings of the Buddha are by diving into this particular Eightfold Path. So whatever you choose to do today, have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. Perhaps I'll see you in a future class. Be well and take care. Sawadee krap.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To provide support for this podcast, visit patreon.com/support Buddha. To access more teachings, visit buddhadailywisdom.com. There, you will discover a full range of courses, retreats, and online resources to assist you on the path to enlightenment. Remember to establish a daily, consistent meditation practice, along with learning and practicing these teachings. A well-developed meditation practice is the foundation in which to train the mind to attain enlightenment.